a lot of the founders think, oh, I can't talk about the alpha version that bombed and didn't get any views. We completely changed it since then. It's like, well, yeah, that's a massive, because what you've done is you've put something out into the market. Everyone's told you they hate it. No one's bought it. You've got 100 suggestions of how to improve it. You go and make the beta version, and guess what? That sells better. Mm-hmm. So you make the next version, your version 3, version 4, version 5. All of that is a journey. The investor is buying all of that. And they love that. They want to see that you've had so many iterations of going to market, because that gets you closer and closer and closer to product market fit. And that's what they care about, product market fit.
For too long, talented experts with a service-based business like coaches, consultants, and freelancers have been losing out to the often inferior competition, and for just one reason: they struggle to communicate the true value of what they offer. This is made all the more challenging if you have a quieter personality or you're feeling overwhelmed by everything that goes into getting visible and marketing your business. If you can relate, I am excited that you're here, because I believe that value whispering can really help you. It's the art of getting to know your true value and then weaving this through every interaction you have and every brilliant thing that you do, so you can naturally stand apart from your competitors, feel aligned in everything that you do, attract more of your dream clients, and have an impact that matters. Welcome, I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, and I'm excited to be your guide in mastering the art of value whispering. Now, you've probably, like me, heard the statistics that when it comes to getting funding or investment to grow your business, it's much harder for women to get investment. And I was always curious as to why, because for what I understand of investors is that they want to make money. They want to invest in businesses that are likely to give them a good return. And time after time, female-led businesses have been proven to give a good and solid return. They're a better investment. So why was there a mismatch? And I was reminded about my own experience when I worked in corporate, and I remember sharing my ideas in meetings. And so often I was talked over, and the man sitting 2 or 3 seats down from me would say exactly the same thing. And while my idea got ignored, his idea was met by applause and approval, and things would move forward. And I was like, I just said that. Why are they not listening to me? Then I started to work on my public speaking, and I started to learn how to formulate my thoughts and communicate those clearly. And suddenly, when I started speaking up in meetings and sharing my ideas, people listened. More than that, they started to respond to me and approve of my ideas and ask questions, and things started to take shape and happen. I was like, wow, this is so fascinating. It was never that I was being ignored. It was that I wasn't being clear. People didn't really get what I said. So as soon as I was able to communicate my value, my ideas, my challenges, clearly things changed. In my corporate role, I got promoted 3 times in 18 months, thanks to that practice, and ended up reporting direct to the CEO. And since then, I've been on a bit of a mission to help other people understand and communicate their true value, so they can get more of what they want as well. They can have that impact, make a difference that makes them feel proud. So I was quite curious to know, when it comes to getting investment, is it the same problem? Is it that women can get investment, but they just don't know the rules of the game? They don't know how to communicate that value in a way that speaks to investors. So I invited my good friend, David Pugh, onto the show. He is an expert at creating pitch decks that get you investment. And amongst many other questions, I asked his thoughts on what it takes for women to get investment. And I'm not going to give you any spoilers. You're going to have to listen to find out. But in the process of finding out the answer to that question, you're also going to discover exactly what it takes for you to put an amazing pitch deck together that gets the attention of investors in 30 seconds or less so you can start to get investment for your idea, for your business, play bigger and have more impact. So I am really excited for this episode. You're going to get so much value and, as always, a complete masterclass in how to create a pitch deck for your business that helps you get investment. But before you listen to that, I want to invite you to join the Dream Clients Club. This is my community for service-based business owners where every week I'm giving you a live masterclass in value whispering, in sales, marketing, how to stand out, how to build your mindset. You can join those sessions live every week. Plus, there's a whole bank of replays already there for you. There's also challenges and resources and a wonderful community that you can dive straight into. And this community, it's the kind of resource that many coaches charge a lot of money for. And for you, it's completely free. Just go to melittacampbell.com/club to get started. And also, what I'm running through the club over the summer is my summer business school. And this year we are focused on getting your mindset in the right place so you can enjoy flowing towards your goals. You can put imposter syndrome behind you. You can create the habits and environment to support your success. So come the end of the summer, you can really accelerate your personal and business growth much more easily. You'll have everything working for you, and the summer is the perfect time to do this sort of reflection and start to grow personally as well. So I am really excited. We start on the 1st of July, and right now if you dive in, you get a 40% early bird discount until Friday the 28th of June. You can find all the details for that at melittacampbell.com/summer24. Meantime, here's David. So hi, Dave. Great to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, good. And I can't quite believe that we've got to this point. We're like episode 200 and I don't know what. And we haven't really talked about investment. We had Sophia on the show quite some time ago talking about how she raised money, but we haven't specifically looked at how do you pitch for investment. So I am really excited that you're here today because that's everything about what you do. But before we dive into all of that, I would love it if you could take a moment to introduce yourself to the audience and explain a little bit about how you came to be where you are today.
Yeah, sure. I'll try and be as brief as possible. But basically, I've been self-employed since 2007. So I was a senior graphic designer. I did a university course, graduated, found it hard to get a job. I got a job in graphic design, which was related to my degree quite heavily. Worked in graphic design for a few years in corporate events and health foods and sports tech sort of stuff. And then in 2007, I decided to quit my job and go freelance. Now, the main reason for that was actually because I was also doing a lot of music and I wanted my kind of free time back because I was doing a lot of late night gigs and stuff like that, and I wanted to have my time available. But the music thing sort of petered out, but I still did the career. And after going freelance and working for myself, there was no way I was going back to work for anyone else. And it didn't start very well, actually. I was actually on housing benefit. I really struggled. And then I moved to London and I couldn't get housing benefit, which was a really good thing because I had to really sort of pull my finger out and develop my portfolio and work really hard to get myself out of this financial sort of black hole that I was in, really. And so I set up a website, which is freelancegraphicdesigner.co.uk. I bought that domain name for £5. I actually saw it was going to be expiring from someone else. I bought it. It had loads of backlinks. It had loads of history. And I managed to get it because the person actually just let it drop, So I picked that up and I had to work out what projects I could get on there and just try and fill it with as many projects as possible. But then it started ranking in Google. And I actually ended up picking up some really, really good clients, some big clients, things like Hilton, Adidas, other big brands, MTV and stuff like that, just crazy stuff. And then eventually an agency picked me up and wanted to work with me and do pitch decks for the BBC. So I was working on these really big franchises, which are making into the billions globally as franchises, because the BBC make much more money from exporting their shows abroad through BBC Worldwide than they do from the license player. But it was kind of down to me to make these decks come to life. They were kind of interactive. They were, quite ahead of their time as it goes. But we're talking about a big media company here. But in terms of the writing and the structure and the flow and the communication of value for all these programs, which are actually very complicated, programs like Strictly Come Dancing, you wouldn't believe the complexity in that show. And we had to show all that sophistication, exactly how it's all put together and all that sort of stuff. And now it's in multiple territories across the world. And it's mainly down to those presentations. If those presentations hadn't been right, they probably wouldn't have picked up those shows. And it wasn't just that, it was Top Gear, there was Top Gear USA, CBeebies, BBC Earth, which is massive, Doctor Who and stuff like that. So there was quite a few shows that I worked on, these really dazzling presentations, these decks, the kind of like pitch deck plus, really. And then I worked on lots of other big brands and stuff like that. But then I moved from London back down to Bournemouth, where I am now. And then it was like, okay, I could sort of see the writing was on the wall for graphic designers in general, right? And this was way before AI. This was more that I was looking at Fiverr. And I was seeing the clients didn't understand the difference between a designer that's very, very experienced most people couldn't anyway, than someone that could do it much cheaper on Fiverr. So I actually knew that I wanted to transition away from selling my time for money and sell a much more high value product. And I worked with a business coach, and he took designers and transformed them into selling high value products. And the one thing they encouraged me to do and encouraged all his people to do, was to look back through their career and see what was the highest value transformation you delivered. And for me, it was easy. It was the pitch deck stuff. It wasn't just the BBC. I did lots of other pitch decks as well for startups, for tech companies, for big athletics arenas and stuff like that. So I'd done a hell of a lot of these pitch decks. I knew exactly the quality that had to be and the level of communication, because when you're sort of freelance, you're not just a designer. You're a copywriter. You're a marketing person. You're like all these extra things. Like you have to know loads of stuff. Like let's think this umbrella of being a graphic designer. Actually, you get chucked so much stuff. And when you're freelance, you can't really turn it down. You just have to find a way. So through that period of my time, I did develop a lot of different skills. And I was like a consultant, like much more of a consultant than I was just a designer. So basically that was it. And then I started the brand Scrub the Deck. And then Scrub the Deck, I was basically reaching out to tech founders and CEOs with a very simple question. Are you looking to raise investment? And when I started putting that question out, I got a lot of people saying yes. So I realized that actually the transformation that people want when they get investment is not just the pitch deck. That's a kind of a small part of it, actually. And the main thing that people were desperate for was to get in front of investors. They wanted to connect to investors. Now, I'd been kind of prolific on LinkedIn for a long time, and I had made loads and loads of connections. I got over 20,000 connections, and a lot of those people were investors. So I was able to actually reach out to them and talk to them and say, look, what are the magic ingredients that you need to see? What do you need to see in a pitch deck for it to wow you and make you take notice of it and want to have a meeting with these people? And I basically developed this along with the investors, this kind of 18-point structure. And now that's the foundation of my product. You have to get all these 18 points exactly right, 8, 9, 10 out of 10 for every slide. And if you do that, you're guaranteed to get meetings, as long as, the business fundamentals are sound, but that's part of it anyway. But yeah, so that's the product. But the product I sort of developed, I coined it Connect and Convince. That's the sort of umbrella product, which is the connect bit. Obviously, through my connections, I've got about 650 now investor connections. I now prolifically just reach out to investors, so the founders don't have to do that. I've already done it for them. I'm kind of that go-between. And then the convince bit, which is having this 18-point structure for the pitch deck, which will guarantee you a meeting. And that's kind of my story. I tried to do that as short as possible, but it ended up being quite long in the end, didn't it?
Well, a brilliant story, but I think there's already a lot of lessons that you've touched on there. But before we go further into that, can you just explain for anyone who's not familiar, what is a pitch deck? Is it just like a sales presentation?
Yeah.
Or is there something different that a pitch deck has to have?
Yes. So with a pitch deck, you have to communicate all the metrics of a business that an investor cares about, not what you care about. So I kind of think of myself as almost a bit of a translator. People want to talk all these things about their company, and some of it's very relevant, some of it's not. And that's why I've got this 18-point guide, which is it's kind of like 6 chapters, and there's 3 subsections per each chapter. And I could go into it in depth if you want. I don't mind doing that. But basically, all it is a document, a PDF document that communicates all of those points in the right amount of detail, not too much, not too little. So they can easily browse it, usually in about 30 seconds. Even if it is a wordy document, they'll power read through it. And if you get on the baby pile, then they'll have a bit more of a detailed read. But yeah, it's just communicating those points that investors need to see. And they go, right, okay, you've got all the fundamentals that I can see for you to have the best success at making me a lot of money, which is what they care about. And the thing is with investors is that the interesting thing is they're not trying to make their money back all the time. What they're actually trying to do is they're taking a gamble on about 10 companies. They expect 9 to not make it and they'll lose the whole investment. And they want 1 to be that billion-dollar unicorn idea, which is going to cover all of the rest of their losses for everything. And that is a typical sort of mindset of the investor. And people don't realize that's what it is. But as soon as you understand the psychology of what the investor is actually looking for, you can start to put together a pitch deck that gives that ambition that shows, yes, this is the one that's going to wipe out all your other failures.
Yeah. So are there any things that you typically see that a founder wants to say that the investor is like, well, I don't care about that? So is there, and vice versa, are there any key things that an investor really wants to see that a lot of founders miss altogether? Is there any key thinking there that people need to hone in on?
I think a lot of the time, the founder will be in the mode of selling to the investor like they're a customer. Mm-hmm. And that's a mistake. Like going, hey, look at this product. It does this and this and this, and it's going to do this for you. It's going to do this for you. It's going to do this for you. They don't really care about that. What they do care about is how many customers they've got that care about it. What the customers are saying about it. And that's all about the traction. Like no one's going to give you any money for any ideas. A lot of founders, they have this kind of almost, I hate to say it, but sort of like almost a bit of an entitled sort of a mentality, which I've seen quite a lot, which can be very destructive for the whole process. That because they've got a great idea, they're amazed that no one's seeing what a good idea and just throwing money at them to make this thing. It's not about that, because no one knows what's a good idea until you put it into the market. The market will tell you it's a good idea, and that's what the investor really cares about. They care about what the market's saying. They look at it, product market fit and traction. It's not all about sales, but if you have something that's getting recommended and it's growing virally without you having to put any money in advertising, people are just recommending it to people. That sort of exponential type growth. Once you plug marketing into something like that, bang, then you could have a $1 billion company. So that's what was your other point? What do people say? What do investors want to see? That I think I've kind of covered both sides there, haven't I? Really, what they want to see and what founders want to tell them is 2 different things, and that's that kind of disconnect that I'm always trying to fix when I'm working with my clients. I'm always selling them, look, you're not selling this product to this person. You're showing how popular it's going to be.
Yeah, they're selling the opportunity, not the product, I guess.
Yeah.
And one thing that we see a lot on Dragon's Den or Shark's Tank, if you're in the US, is that very often they hate the product altogether, but they love the founder, and they'll invest in them. So I don't care about that, but I really want to invest in you because I think we can do something better. Is that something that has to come across in the pitch deck, or is that irrelevant?
It comes across more in a face-to-face pitch.
Okay.
The pitch decks that I deliver, they are for one purpose, and that is to convert an investor that knows nothing about you, getting just the document, just the PDF, reading it, and then saying, yeah, I want to meet you. Now, in the meeting, it might come across, yes, you're massively investable. Now, one of the key slides is the team slide. Now, they're not going to get a sense of your personality as such, but certainly what a lot of people don't do or don't do very well is actually manage to big themselves up enough and talk about the achievements that paints that picture for the investor that yes, like, you know, like attitudes are very hard to change. Like if you've got the right attitude and if you've demonstrated that, you know, people say, oh, you can't say things like, I'm tenacious, I never give up, I blah, blah, blah. It's not that kind of language. It's like, well, actually, I took this company from zero to so-and-so, and I did an exit of this and this. And all of that paints the picture that you're tenacious and you won't give up. So really, it's about listing those achievements that demonstrate and, you know, show, not tell. That's the real key to this.
Yeah. Actually, my daughter was given advice similar to that. At the minute, she's just trying to get work experience. And of course, she's 14. She hasn't got any work experience to put on a CV per se, although actually she's done a lot of charity work. So she's got an advantage. But the teachers were saying, no, talk about how you help at home, what you enjoy doing, because that's going to paint your personality. And if you're someone that has, as you say, those kind of habits and attributes and attitudes that are going to blend with that work environment. And I thought that was just such brilliant advice. So it's nice to know that that works at every stage of your career. Yeah.
I recently hired someone to take on the sales calls to free up my time to do more of the sort of global stuff, you know, and I spoke to 5 or 6 people. And it's amazing that the person that I hired, I knew within a few seconds. It just came through, like his attitude. And it was vindicated as well, because when I had other meetings with other people, he wanted to be involved in those meetings. He wanted to learn about stuff. You know, he wanted me to send him stuff, send him recordings of old sales calls, send him me decks, read stuff, you know, like he was there all the time. He wasn't just thinking, you know, well, if I get it, then I'll do that. He was actively doing all that stuff. So I got the feeling for him like within a few seconds, but it was totally validated by his behaviors.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot on the show, is how do you identify your true value and let that come across, because that's what builds your credibility, the belief, the connection, and helps people see you as their ideal choice. So I guess that's the same thing, but with what it sounds like is there's different stages. So you have your pitch deck, which has to speak instantly in 30 seconds. So how many pages in a PDF would your ideal pitch deck?
Yeah, now this is another thing that I hear a lot. It's like, how many pages does it have to be? It has to be 5 pages. It can't be more than 30. It can't be 40. It's not about the number of pages, because I've seen decks which have 5 pages, but the text is so dense and every single slide is like got a million things on it. It'd be much more effective to have 10 slides with a point per slide than to put all of those same points on one slide and go, oh no, I've got to get it under 5 pages. So it's really about how you communicate effectively that point. And a lot of that does come down to design. Now that my whole background's design, you know, like design and communication. So the effectiveness of a design, you know, if you have 5 sentences nicely spaced, or like 5 words per sentence in a short paragraph, or like 3 2-line paragraphs and a really nice image that paints a sort of emotional vibe for it, that is far more effective as a single slide than, you know, making sure, oh, I have to have 5 slides, so I'll get all this on one slide, you know, because no one could really digest that. Even the way that you read stuff from left to right and scan stuff, when you've got a busy slide and you've got an infographic over here with a number here and a number here and a number here, you're always drawn to the biggest thing first, but that's not always the linear progression of how you should read it. You know, so it's really, I keep talking about this, like it's not about the number of slides. It's about making sure that that point that you're making has impact. And if it doesn't, it goes, you know, if it doesn't fulfill a goal to change someone's mind or to communicate something of value, it has to go. Usually the first drafts of all the pitch decks I have are massively wordy, but that's okay, because you want to get all your ideas out onto the page. Then you can sort of do an audit of what you're talking about and like really be brutal as to like, is that really necessary? Is that sentence going to get me an investment or not? You know, and it comes down to that. And when you've kind of purified it, it can be 30 slides, but every single slide has impact, you know, and if each slide takes a second to read, you've got your 30 seconds. But people go, oh no, it's a 30-page deck, it's too long. It's not, you know, it's nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I see that with communication. It's like, how long should a social media post be, or a blog post, or whatever? It's like, There's no such thing as too long, just too boring. you know.
Yeah.
But my background is in design management. That was my degree, which was really looking at how do you graphically and visually represent a business strategy and a feeling, and how can the two come together to have that instant impact as you're talking about. So when you said you've got 30 seconds to get your point across, I think to my mind instantly I could see, well, if it's properly designed, then that's going to have so much more power, because as you said, it's not just the words, but if you back that up with the right image and the right layout and the right emphasis and the right feel to that, so the tone comes through with the graphics, then that point will land so much more powerfully. So a little bit of extra time and effort will go a lot further. And you say you have that 30 seconds and then you get the meeting, and that's when you can wow them with your personality and how you communicate that message out loud. And I guess the two have to come together to be cohesive for you to really have that credibility. When I used to do freelance communications and I worked with a lot of founders, and they were like, for their website, oh, just write me something that looks like that person's website. It's like, but that's not you. And if I do that, yeah, your website will look good, but it's not differentiated. And when they actually meet you, those aren't the words you're going to say because they're not your words. So I guess it's making sure that pitch also fits with the live pitch they're going to experience afterwards. So they don't come across as fake in any way, but really coherent and strong. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned there about a face-to-face pitch versus a written pitch. A lot of the time, I don't know if this is going off course, but a lot of the time when I do these kind of sales calls, and the founder on the Zoom call with me says, yeah, I've got the deck here, I'll show you. And they start presenting the deck and then they're talking all the way through it. And I had to say, look, you've got to stop, because a deck that you produce live to someone shouldn't really have any text on it, apart from the odd bullet point to remind yourself. It should mostly be a photo and maybe one or two words, and that's it. And secondly, the way that the investor will digest this pitch deck, you're not going to be there to talk about it. So you might as well email it to me and I can experience it for the first time exactly like an investor would. And a lot of people make that mistake when they're pitching live. They think they've got to put all the words on the screen. It's the most distracting thing ever. You're trying to read it and you're trying to listen to them. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. So you need two versions of the same pitch. One that you can send ahead of time and gives them the information they need to say yes to a meeting. And then another version that you'll deliver live that doesn't have all the text, because that's what you're going to say anyway, right? So it just then has a different purpose. It has to support what you're saying out loud and help them follow what you're saying as well. So to enhance that, like a TEDx talk, you don't have many graphics, but what they do emphasizes the message that you're trying to get across. So it supports that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, that is all true. But with Scrub the Deck, like a lot of people tell you that you need to have 3 decks. You need to have one that's a quick, 10-second browse or a one-pager type thing. You need to have your written full email deck that you send, the ones that I produce, and you need to have a presentation deck. Now, I've not found that I've needed to do 3. Occasionally, you'll get an investor that just demands a one-pager, which is very easy to do once you've got the full pitch deck document. But if you have one pitch deck document that is well designed, like I said, it's digestible, it's got 30 slides, but every slide is just like takes a couple of seconds, then that fulfills a quick flick through. So it does that. It also fulfills the role of the email detailed deck, because you can also put hyperlinks in for extra stuff like tables and stats and projections and graphs and financial data. If you want, they can go deeper in that. And then once they've read that and they agree to meet you, you don't need to present on the call. They're already convinced. They would have given it another read before meeting you to refresh themselves and to go a bit deeper. They're asking you questions. The investor's asking you questions then, right? So you're just there to answer and validate those points. You don't have to present anything in my system. Now, there is another version of that. If you go to events and you have lots of investors there and they don't know anything about you, yes, you have to prepare a presentation. But you've got the benefit of you're doing the talking bit, so they don't have to do the reading bit. And then it's the same deck, but it's just like no words, and you're just saying what you would have written. So that's that.
Yeah. One thing that I used to try and do with my CV, and occasionally I've worked with clients that wanted support really getting their value across in a CV, not so much these days, but one thing that I always tried to do was to set it up so that it guided them in the questions to ask me so I could prepare better. And then, if there was something that I wanted them to ask me a question about so I could expand on it, I would write it in a way that they would almost feel, oh, but that question was burning in front of mind. Is that something that you can do in a pitch to kind of help that process and therefore help you effectively give a presentation through the questions that they're going to ask or most likely to ask?
Well, I kind of love that. That's really interesting that you're kind of putting almost like clickbait in your own CV. I tend not to encourage that in the pitch decks that I produce. I don't want to be vague. I don't want to leave any doubt. That's the thing. Like if you're saying something and you can't back it up, the investor's tolerance for, with a better phrase, BS is pretty low. And if they even get a slight hint, that's enough for you to just be in the bin. So actually what I do is I very carefully pick the stats that communicate the value and demonstrate it. If there's any sort of claims or things like, oh, we think this, or ask us more about this and stuff like that, I wouldn't put it in the decks that I produce, because the bar for them saying no and throw it away, their default position is no. When they open that deck, it's like, why am I not going to invest in this? The first thing I see that I don't like, it goes, so I can read the next pitch deck, because I've got plenty of these things to read. And if they can get through it, they go, I haven't actually doubted anything they've said. Then it's like, well, that demands a bit more delving into. It probably demands a meeting. I've probably got some questions to ask them. I want to, thoroughly stress test them. If they pass the meeting, then you go into a really intense period of due diligence where everything gets checked. That's where you cannot lie or fake or fabricate anything. Everything is genuine. Everything is fact. The thing that I am amazed about a lot of the time is that when I get into deep consultations with my clients, things emerge that I'm going, oh my God, that's amazing. That's a fact that goes on page 1. I didn't realize you'd done that. And it might come from the 5th or 6th consultation as something comes up that the founder didn't think was relevant. And I'm going, yes, it's relevant, massively relevant. Investors' eyes are going to pop out of their heads when they read that. And they hadn't even put it in. And I didn't even know about it until it just came up in some conversation. So, that's my thoughts on that one.
Yeah, no, great points. And I was having a discussion yesterday with someone about their value, and it's quite hard to identify the key parts of your value because, one, you're so close to it, and also you have this memory of all the ways you've messed up, things that have gone wrong. And so the value in that can be hidden a little bit, but sometimes the value comes from you having gone through that failure, having messed up that way and learned that lesson, which actually is a key thing that can help you succeed in the future. So actually it becomes a value point. Is that something you see with your founders?
Absolutely. And actually I've got a slide dedicated to that, which is the Our Journey slide. Now, a lot of the founders, they think, oh, I can't talk about the alpha version that bombed and didn't get any views. We completely changed it since then. It's like, well, yeah, that's a massive, because what you've done is you put something out into the market. Everyone's told you they hate it. No one's bought it. You've got 100 suggestions of how to improve it. You go and make the beta version, and guess what? That sells better.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? There's a whole load of other things that they've requested. So you make the next version, your version 3, version 4, version 5. All of that is a journey. The investor is buying that, is buying all of that, right? They're buying the alpha, the beta, all the other versions of it. And they love that. They want to see that you're on version 8.6 of it. And you've had so many iterations of going to market, because that gets you closer and closer and closer to product market fit. And that's what they care about, product market fit. So yeah, absolutely talk about it. And people don't. They kind of want to hide and they go, oh no, I don't want to talk about all those failures. People fail their way to success. All investors know that. They're at the top of their game. They've probably had companies. They've had millions of failures. The people that are the most successful have had the most failures. So absolutely celebrate your failures, because it's all a step forward to success.
Yeah. And as you say, the investors will probably really relate to that, because it's probably echoed their own journey, and they know to get to a certain point, you have to have messed up quite significantly often.
Yeah. And the thing is, they don't want to be investing at the point where they haven't messed up yet, because it's their money on the line. So that's why ideas don't get anywhere. That's why early versions with no traction don't get anywhere. They don't get investment usually, unless you've got other metrics that can back it up. What you really want is to be on version 8 of the thing and get investment for that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I expect, like, inviting guests on this show, I don't have anyone usually, unless they're a real expert, that has been in business less than 5 years, because I get a lot of people pitching, hey, I've been in business 6 months and I've achieved all of this. Like, no, come back when you've really messed up. And that's where the real lesson is. That's the part where they're going to have something much more valuable to share with the audience. So yeah, embrace your failures.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I know a lot of the audience are female founders or women that are looking potentially for investment or in the future. And there is a lot of publicity around the fact that women find it harder, or not that women find it harder, that there just isn't as much investment available to women as to men. Is that your experience, or is there anything women can do to give themselves more chance to get that investment?
I've heard that. It's not something that I've experienced. There's no reason at all why a man would be favored to get investment over a woman. It's nothing to do with that. It's only to do with the business. Like, the investor doesn't care about anything. They care about the business. And actually, to be honest, it even goes the other way a little bit, because some big investment companies want to have diversity among their founders. And because the majority are men, they just are, there's more men founders than female founders. Now, that's a different question. I don't know why that is, but that's a different question. But they would actually, maybe, if there was 2 identical businesses and one was founded by a woman, they would actually favor that to get the investment. So as far as I can see, there's absolutely no reason at all. And there's no bias towards men in terms from investment. I think it's just because there is more male founders and female founders. And I don't know why that is, but that's something else. I can't answer that. But I can answer the fact that, I don't see any reason or evidence that the females get less funding.
Yeah. And I guess once they follow a clear structure to make sure that their value is coming across loud and clear, and that market fit and all the good things that investors looking for, then yeah, they don't necessarily care about the person, as long as it's a good investment and they can see the founder has what it takes to make that idea work.
Yeah.
So on that point, you mentioned you've got an 18-point system with sort of chapters. Can you give us very quickly, if it's possible, an overview of what those key points are that we need to think about to include in a pitch deck?
Yes. So the way I start is with 6 chapters. So the first chapter would be the introduction chapter, and the first slide of that. And the reason why it's done in this structure, by the way, is because if you have a title slide and it says there's 3 things, and the first 3 things: elevator pitch, problem, and solution. And what it does is it kind of resets the brain to go, right, those are the first 3 things I'm going to concentrate on. And the brain's very good at concentrating. If you give it 3 things, so I'm going to do 3 things, I'm going to present 3 things, you get the maximum focus for those 3 things. And then the next slide has another title slide, which is a kind of breather slide, and it introduces the next 3 things. So the first 3 things is introduction chapter, elevator pitch, problem, solution. So the elevator pitch is, if you only had 10 seconds with the investor, what would you talk about? You wouldn't try and sell it to them straight away. You'd give them all the facts that they need to know as to why this is going to be successful. Oh, we've achieved this, we've got this as a client, we've got this many people, we've got a waiting list of this, we've got a pipeline of this, blah, blah, blah. You wouldn't go on and on and on about what it is you do. You try and wow them, and you'd give them a reason to read that document. Then the next slide is the problem. What problem do you solve? How big is that problem? And now what the investor cares about is that a big enough problem? Is it a high value problem? What's the monetary value of it? What's it costing people in terms of time, money, and all that sort of stuff? Is it growing, and is it accelerating? Those are some key facts about that problem slide a lot of people miss out. And then once you've done the problem slide, and people, investors are like, wow, that's a big problem, growing, accelerating, growing market, impressed with that. Then you just solve it with a solution slide. Now, that solution slide can just be one sentence. And we solve this with our blah, blah, blah solution, right? And that sets you up perfectly for chapter 2. And chapter 2 is all about the product. So then you go product. So the next 3 slides is going to be overview, benefits, and the core technology. So the idea of that is the overview, like, what is it? Is it an app? Is it a website? Is it this? Is it that? Are you explaining it in a way that a 5-year-old can understand? Because a lot of the time we jump in on page 10 and we forget to start at page 1 as to what the thing is. And if the investors are confused about what it is, you've lost them. So there's so many chances to lose them, right? So just make sure there's no mistakes. So that overview slide is really important. You just lay out exactly what it is. Then you talk about all the benefits of it. Now, that's not the features, that's the benefits. A lot of people just go on and on about the features. And it's all about the benefits, and the benefits to the consumer, which relate back to that intro slide and the problem. And then after that slide, the third slide of that chapter 2 is the core technology. And that is really your secret sauce. What makes this better than anything else? What's the protection? What's the high barrier to entry for anyone else to enter? What's the IP? What's all the stuff that make it uncopyable, basically. Or if it was to be copied, it's going to cost a lot more than the investment that you're asking for. That's the main point. So that core technology slide is the moat around your castle. So that's chapter 2. So should I keep going into this level of detail, or do you want me to sort of summarize the rest? Because it is pretty detailed.
Yeah, maybe just give us what chapter 3
and 4. All right. I'll do at the top level. If you want to know more, book a call with me and I'll go right deep with you.
You have a nice graphic, don't you, of this process?
I've got tons of graphics. Yeah, I've got tons of stuff on this. Okay, so that's the sort of level of detail for those first 2 chapters. So after you know the product, you want to know the business model. Then you want to know what that business model enters into, the market. Then you do a whole chapter on why us. Why is it you that are the best people to do it? And then the final chapter is the ask, which is all about core financials and how much you're asking for and the use of the funds. But it's all done in a specific reason. It's been tried and tested across hundreds of projects, and I've seen what gets invested, what doesn't get invested, and what investors question, and what they're missing, and what they want to see, and all that sort of stuff. And now the whole idea with my investor network is now they know that when they get a scrub the deck, it's been through that stringent process and it's got all those aspects they need to see. So they're happy now to receive my spammy emails. Hey, look at this investment. Whereas they wouldn't be happy to receive yours because, it's another founder shoving a pitch deck down their throat. Like, you have to earn the trust. Now that I can talk about ways in which you can do that if you want to promote your own pitch deck. I'm very happy to do that. But again, we're talking about big mistakes. A lot of big mistakes that founders make is they connect to an investor on LinkedIn and go, oh, great, you connected with me. Here's my pitch deck. And it's just like, whoa, just chill out, like it's too much. And that sort of nurturing, and you've got to earn a bit of respect. You've got to earn your place at the table before you can start pitching to them. Or use someone in between like me, which has already got that.
Yeah, thank you for taking us through that. And what I love is it all has a purpose, and each chapter gives them a reason to read the next, sets the scene. So you're building through that, because I've seen a lot of pitch decks and sales presentations and what have you. And it's always the first slide, this is about me and everything I've done in the past. You're like, well, that's irrelevant. They don't care yet who you are. And what you've done in the past is no indication necessarily of where you're going. And you're just procrastinating, basically, and giving them an opportunity to switch off. You want to get them at hello. So I really loved everything about what you shared. It makes total sense. But one thing that Sophia talked about when she came on the show was, she successfully, as a female founder who is young as well in New York, she got $3 million of investment. But she said the hardest part was getting that connection with the investors. As you say, you have to earn your place. And I think this is perhaps one area where women struggle, is they don't necessarily have the network to tap into to introduce them to kind of shortcut that process. So,
but no one has the network. That's the thing. I didn't have the network. Like, it doesn't. It's nothing to do with being male or female. Like, it may be a confidence thing. Maybe you could say that in general, males have more confidence than females. That might be a trait that gives them an advantage. But there's plenty of very confident females. I mean, if you've got confidence and you've got energy and determination, you'll make the connections. It doesn't matter your gender at all. Like, you will make those connections. And most people start with zero connections, but then what's the first connection you should make? Someone that's got other connections. Make that connection. There's 3 female founders, all successfully raised for a total of over £2 million on my Scrub the Deck podcast. I think it's YouTube /@Scrub the Deck. So there's 3 female founders on there that I've interviewed, all raised massive sums. And there's some great stories there, of how they did it. And a lot of them did connect to the connectors. They made a hot list of investors they think would be interested because they've invested in similar stuff. And that's just research. There's resources out there. There's LinkedIn, there's obviously Google, and there's Crunchbase, which is another good resource. So make your hot list, and you've got to do it in massive numbers. It's a lot of work. You do have to do a lot of research, but all of that work is investment in yourself and in the network that you're building. You're going to build this network. Anyone can do it. And I don't really want to hear excuses go, oh, I don't have the network. Well, you have to get it. You have to do it. The people that succeed have got the mindset that they keep knocking on doors and they keep asking, they keep emailing. They don't just send a few emails and go, oh, they're not interested. Well, they might have missed your email. It might be the 10th email that they get off you that they go, oh, yeah, sure. Here's so-and-so's number or whatever. You just have to keep trying, and you have to keep knocking and knocking and knocking. And like I say, I don't think it's anything to do with gender myself.
Yeah. And we were speaking with Anthony Steers on the show recently, and he was talking about how sometimes people purposely ignore your first emails because they want to see how persistent you are. So it could be that case as well. So keep going. And I heard some advice from a mentor: until they tell you to F off, keep going.
Yeah,
they haven't.
Absolutely. That's my attitude. Yeah. And I've had investors on my network that I've connected with in LinkedIn 3 years ago. And I'm just looking down the stream of messages. And there's like 30 messages. And maybe on the 31st one, they go, oh, that sounds interesting. Send me the pitch deck.
Yeah.
I could have given up ages ago. But the fact is, they didn't dislike you. They did ignore you, but not because they don't like you or don't like the approach. It just wasn't right for them. The offer wasn't right. When the offer fits them, then they respond.
Exactly. If you were really annoying them, they would unconnect, they would block you, whatever. So if they haven't done that, keep going. Dave, you have shared
Absolutely
a complete masterclass and so much advice. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all of that with us. Is there anything we've missed?
Yes, there probably is, but I can't think of anything on the top of my head. But if you want to know more from me, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I always post stuff, little gems. I've got my YouTube channel, because if you are going to take this journey seriously, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work from my side and it's a lot of work from your side. And I'd make no bones about that. It's a tough journey. You need the right mindset. And a lot of people don't have the right mindset.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that come to me, they think they want to raise, and I'm honestly telling them, you're not ready. You're going to waste your time. You're going to waste your money if you raise now. But go away and fix these things in your business first and then come back, because that's exactly what the investors will tell you. I'm not about taking someone's money and giving them a pitch deck. I don't want to do that to see someone fail. I want to post these successes on my website, on LinkedIn, everywhere. I want to show that it is possible and give that inspiration to people. So that's my final message.
Brilliant. So I'll add those links in the show notes to your YouTube channel, your LinkedIn and your website, so people can go and check you out. And we were talking about weaving in that clickbaity thing, and you've just done that. So they have to reach out to you on LinkedIn to find out that one thing.
Yeah, sounds good. That sounds good.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great fun. See you later.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have found this episode valuable and are all set to start thinking differently about how you talk about your business as an investment idea, how you approach your pitch decks, and how do you think differently about whether you are sending information that people will read or information that you are going to talk along with and present, and the ways we can communicate in different situations to really get our value across. So if you have found this episode valuable, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your network and business besties by sharing this episode on social media or through email. And if you have loved the show, then I would love it if you leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps more people to find and enjoy the show. And again, I would love to invite you to join us at the Dream Clients Club. It's the community where every week I'm sharing a marketing masterclass, and there's replays and challenges and all sorts of amazing resources in there to help support your business growth. And so you can go to melittacampbell.com/club to join there. It's completely free. And also, I would love to welcome you to the Summer Business School. We start the 1st of July, but you can join after that if you happen to be listening to this a little bit later on. But go to melittacampbell.com/summer24 to find out all the details and to register for that program. It's just on over the summer. It won't be repeated. It's a one-off, and we're really going to focus in on getting your mindset in the right space so you can grow personally, feel confident, put imposter syndromes and limiting beliefs and all that mind trash behind you so you can flow towards your goals come the end of the summer. So I look forward to welcoming you to the club, maybe to the Summer Business School, and here again next Thursday on the Art of Value Whispering podcast. I'm Melitta Campbell, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.